Hi friends, today we will learn about the fetal circulation. There is one vein that carries food and oxygen from the placenta to the baby, and there are two arteries that carries waste from the baby back to the placenta. So there is one umbilical vein and there are two umbilical arteries in the umbilical cord. So this is the diagram of placenta, the how the baby is attached to the placenta through the umbilical cord. It is seen over here. From the placenta through the umbilical vein. Uh, the umbilical vein carries the oxygenated blood from the mother to the fetus, which bypasses the liver through the ductus venosus, and it enters the inferior vena cava, which carries blood to the heart. From the right atrium, the blood goes into the left atrium through the foramen ovale, which we have discussed already. From the left atrium, it goes into the left ventricle, and from aorta, it goes into the systemic circulation. This is the one part, and the other one is the right atrium. From the right atrium, the blood goes into the right ventricle, and from pulmonary artery, uh, blood bypasses the lungs and connect to the pulmonary artery to a descending arc of aorta to the ductus arteriosus, and the blood goes into the systemic circulation. And from the umbilical arteries, the blood goes again back to the placenta. Now we will discuss about the shunts which we have already discussed. The ductus venosus between the umbilical vein and the inferior vena cava, the foramen ovale between the right and the left atrium, and the ductus arteriosus between the pulmonary artery and the descending aorta. Now we will have the detail of the fetal circulation. The first one was the structural discussion which we have done. Now we will focus on the detail one. The umbilical vein transport oxygen rich blood and nutrients from placenta to the fetal body. The vein travels along the anterior abdominal wall of the fetus to the liver, and then umbilical vein divides into two branches. About half of the blood passes into the liver and rest enters a shunting vessel called ductus venosus that bypasses the liver. The ductus venosus travels a short distance and joins inferior vena cava. The deoxygenated blood from the placenta is mixed with the deoxygenated blood from the lower parts of the fetal body. This blood continues through the vena cava to the right atrium. As the blood is relatively high in oxygen enters the right atrium of the fetal heart, a large proportion of it is shunted directly to the left atrium through the opening in the atrial septum called as the foramen ovale, which we have already discussed. The more highly oxygenated blood that enters the left atrium through foramen ovale is mixed with the small amount of deoxygenated blood returning from the pulmonary veins. These mixtures moves into the left ventricle and is pumped into the aorta. Some of the blood reaches the myocardium by means of coronary arteries, and some reaches the tissues of the brain through the carotid arteries. This is the diagram of foramen ovale. The blood passes from the right atrium to the left atrium through the opening called as foramen ovale. It is the type of one shunt. The rest of the blood entering the right atrium, as well as the large proportion of the deoxygenated blood entering from the superior vena cava, passes into the right ventricle and out through the pulmonary artery. Enough blood reaches the lung tissues to sustain them. Most of the blood in the pulmonary artery bypasses the lungs, entering the ductus arteriosus, which connects pulmonary artery to a descending portion of the aortic arc. Some of the blood carried by the descending aorta leads to the various parts in the lower region of the body. The rest of the blood passes the umbilical arteries, which branch from the internal iliac arteries and leads to the placenta.